introduce Chris Burylo.
Go, Chris, go.
Chris has been working in the taxation industry since 2004. He has been in management roles in different accounting firms since 2006, with experience servicing thousands of clients regionally, nationally, and internationally. He's completed the LLQP investment funds in Canada, all the coursework for the CFP in 2007, the exempt securities course, several courses in advanced taxation, bachelor's of accounting from the University of Calgary, and this time next year, Chris expects to hold the designations Certified Management Accountant and Chartered Public Accountant. Today, Chris is speaking to us from Pinnacle Accounting, a division of Pinnacle Equities Limited, where he is a managing partner. But let me just give you a personal shout out that in 2005, when I was a net worth of somewhere in the neighborhood of about $900,000, I stopped doing my taxes. I got very upset with my wife at the time, and we had many arguments, and Ronnie told me about knife throwing and everything, and it was true, and there was all kinds of stuff that happened in families and marriages, whatever, okay? But the point is, I let it go. I did not continue going through the process of getting my taxes done. I had my business partner do my taxes for me, and what I thought was a good deal in 2010. Chris happened to be visiting a friend by the name of Megan in our office at the time. Steve came back to me and said, "Rick, you have to pay $2,700 for your taxes. And this is what you need to do. Sign here, here, and here, and go write a check." Well, Chris overheard this, and he came to me and he said, "Rick, go get your garbage bag full of receipts, get your little boxes of your shoe boxes full of receipts, pull them out of the closet." So I did. He said he would help me. I don't remember exactly how long it was, probably 10 days, 20 days later. He came back and said, "Sign here, 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 and here. Government's going to send you a check for $8,900.
Yeah.
What you're about to hear tonight from Chris Burylo is that same type of strategy information. I personally love this guy to death because of the way that he is able to take structural ideas from the government, put them into the generally accountable principles that we all use in business, and I believe that you're going to be blown away by this guy. He is a genius, in my opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Chris Burylo.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. How many of you feel like you're doing this every day in your day-to-day life? Seriously, put up your hands. How many feel like you'd be picking up the kids from school? You know, we're talking about running our businesses. We're going to work every day. I know my fiance Michelle is always complaining about having to flip the laundry. I don't know. I think it's a simple task, but every day we're stuck in this day-to-day grind of juggling things. And the same philosophy applies in your taxation. I remember a time, perhaps when I was younger, and my mom filed my own taxes. There were simpler times back then. You know, maybe we just have to juggle one ball, or we don't have to put that much thought into it. And as time goes by, things seem to get progressively more complex. And what happens when that happens? When things start to get a little bit more complex, and you continue juggling, you throw out another ball, right? and eventually, you drop one. Something happens. I meant to drop that, of course. I can't actually juggle 4 balls. But we all know that's going to happen. You add in the 4th ball, you add in the 5th ball, and eventually you're going to drop one. Wouldn't it be great if we could find a way to better juggle the balls in our life, whether it be to better juggle our tax matters, to better juggle, you know, some of the administration that we have to tackle, so we can focus on the things that we enjoy, you know, traveling or spending time with the family. When I was a kid, my father decided he was going to make a soapbox for me, okay? And I know there's lots of people in the room here who actually know my father. He wasn't a handyman at all, okay? This is the soapbox that he created for me. That's me as a kid. And this was an incredible feat for him because at the time he was a manager at an investors group office, and he didn't have any of the tools that he needed to put something like this together, okay? The way that this worked is basically they sent you over a little kit, and you have to kind of assemble it yourself. And my father, being the man that he was a man with, you know, calculators and numbers. He had great people skills. He had to go to the neighbor to borrow, you know, like the basic hammer and wrenches to kind of put these things together. He didn't quite have the know-how, if you will, on how to, you know, use big fancy, you know, machinery and whatever. I mean, it was a bit of a success. It was branded investors group and stuff, you can see. But what ended up happening on race day was I'm all lined up on the start line with a bunch of the other kids whose fathers built these soapboxes. And I look over to my right, and this kid is riding in what appears to be like a shark. And it was made out of, I don't know, some sort of paper mache or something. I'm not too sure. I don't know much about it either. And it was just this like incredible like work of art. And I look over to my left, and the kid's father built him like a boat on wheels. Like the thing had a mast and sail, and this is how it was going down the pathway. So anyways, we get in there, and it's go time, and we start going down the hill on our little like non-motorized carts. And about halfway through, I'm not doing good by any means, but halfway through, embarrassment really sets in for me when my front right wheel actually comes off of its spoke and kind of like rolls away behind me. I've got to kind of like readjust my position to get through to the finish line so that I'm not scraping the bottom. They actually did give us a prize that day. It wasn't for, you know, best design or best, you know, speed or something like that. It was for being the only contestant to finish the race on 3 wheels. What's important from this story, aside from being, you know, fun and interesting, is that like my father, who didn't have the know-how and the tools to create the same kind of contraption that the other kids' fathers were making, it applies to your taxation in the same way. If we have a better understanding of the tools that we can use to save us money on our taxes, anybody with income is going to be paying taxes on the income, but what are those tools and the strategies that we can use to be better reducing our taxes? How many of you have ever seen the Income Tax Act? See here, it's an ugly piece of mess. I'll be honest with you, even for professionals, when you start getting into this thing, you wind up with more questions than you do answers. Like the paper, like it's little tiny font, and it's on this like onion skin thin pages. Okay, this is my version from 2008, and this particular version has. Anybody want to guess how many pages this has?
2,000. Too many.
2,378, okay? When I read this, a lot of professionals get a lot more questions than they do answers. And this woman here, anybody recognize this face? I didn't expect anybody to put their hand up. This is a particular idol of mine. Her name is Linda Lizotte McPherson, okay? And on your notice of assessment, when you look down near the bottom, it says Linda Lizotte McPherson on every one of your notice of assessment, Commissioner of Revenue. Okay, this woman is the president of the Canada Revenue Agency, okay, the CRA. And her job in the CRA is to make sure that all of her staff know the rules in the Income Tax Act so that they can send you reassessments.
They don't.
You're right. Yeah, if you ever talk to them, they're not very well educated people. Some of them are very well educated. When you get them on the baseline, they're very basic. But as you move through the higher rankings, professionals know a little bit more. So what we're getting out of this is we have this tax act that's extremely complicated, and you got Linda Lizotte McPherson here, who's responsible for making sure that we're all following the tax act and paying as much as possible. And the question that's on all of our mind is, well, what does this mean for me? What are the loopholes, if you will, to getting behind this system and reducing the amount of money that we're saving on taxes? And well, lucky for you guys, I've prepared a list of the top tax questions that we get at our firm, okay? Now, I want to kind of tailor this a little bit for the audience. I'm really curious, how many of you would rather hear more about personal taxation, and how many of you would rather hear more about corporate taxation? Okay, so we're going to do a show of hands. Put your hands up if you want to focus on personal tax today. Okay, and corporate tax. Okay, 50-50 split. We'll tackle a little bit of both. Okay. Great. Okay. Question number 1. What is the working tax benefit, and why can't I claim it with my own tax software at home? Okay. And by the way, these are in no particular order. I'm going to go through them all. I won't answer all of them because we just don't have time, and Rick's already putting pressure on me. Chris, we're running out of time. Hurry it up. But we'll go over all of them. We won't answer all of them. What is the working income tax benefit, and why can't I claim it with my own tax software at my house? I see this all the time where people are in a lower tax bracket, whether it be strategically for tax purposes or that's just where they are. These are people with incomes between $3,000 to maybe $25,000 a year, and there's actually a credit that you get. It's worth about $1,000 to you, depending on where it sits. And people who are filing with their basic quick tax file, it's one of the areas that are just commonly being missed. Okay, I had a situation just a couple weeks ago where a gentleman client of mine had his brother file his taxes for him. It was his brother was that guy in the family who knows enough about taxes to file taxes. Most of us have one of those guys. And he was putting together the tax return, put the income line in the wrong line on the return. It triggered an audit where the CRA came back and wanted to add on some CPP onto the return, charge the guy some extra tax dollars for not claiming his CPP. We got the file to look at it, and what did we realize? Yes, you have to claim the CPP. You're going to have to give them $400 or $500 to make them happy. But you also missed the working income tax benefit. It's worth $1,000 to you. Put the papers through, client's getting a $500 refund. Very neat, very common mistake made by people filing very simple tax returns. Question number 2. What do I need to claim the children's fitness amount? I won't cover that one. How do I capture my child care expenses? How do I capture my moving expenses? This is a good one. I'm an employee, but I want to deduct my expenses like a business owner. How do I do that? That's a cool conversation. Did you guys know? I might have a tax there. I want a button that says, I heart taxes. Michelle, Christmas present, okay? I'm an employee. I want to deduct my expenses like a business owner. How do I do that, okay? For people who are part of a small company, not like if you work for, in Canada or something, you're going to have a very hard time doing something like this. But if you work for a small company, you can file a form called a T-2200. And what that is it's a declaration of conditions of employment. And you can list on there, so long as your boss will sign the form, you can list on there a bunch of expenses that you are allowed to claim on your taxes as a condition of employment. And so long as it's on that form, and your boss has signed it, you can file some extra paperwork with your tax return and reduce your taxes. Really cool opportunity. You don't want to miss that. Have a professional do it if you're nervous. How much of my spousal and child support payments can I deduct? How do my pension plan contributions affect my taxes? What do I need to claim my public transit costs? I'm surprised how many people don't claim their public transit costs. If you're taking the train, just keep your receipt and make sure you're capturing that. How do I claim my medical and dental expenses? How do I claim my professional dues? Commonest one, if you're like an engineer, a nurse, lawyer, etc. On page 3 of the T1 General, you can actually deduct that from your taxes. You know, if you have like an annual due to maintain your professional status. Very cool. Someone else paid for my education. Can I still claim my tuition and textbook credits? The answer is yes. Definitely. And actually in the Income Tax Act, there are something like 8 or 10 different ways that you can actually transfer those credits to and from parents and grandparents, and there's a whole bunch of weird rules in what that looks like. And I mean, with your tuition, like there's the actual cost of the tuition, and then you get special deductions just for going to class and you know, buying textbooks, whether you pay for them or not. Very cool. This is one that I took care of for a grandmother client of mine. I don't consider myself disabled. What do you mean we can still claim the disability tax credit? I'm surprised there's a lot of people out there who are not, you know, disabled by, you know, the you know, meaning of the word like a lot of us think of it. The Income Tax Act kind of writes their own definitions for a lot of these things. And their definition of disabled is based on, you know, X number of dysfunctions. And so long as you get a doctor to sign off on the paperwork, it's a very cool opportunity for tax credits. In this case of this client we dealt with last year, it was a matter of going back and making adjustments to every tax return for like the past 5 years. It was worth a ton of money in a tax refund for that woman. Very cool stuff. I've got some questions here that are very specific to people with investment situations. And I think we've been talking a lot today about, you know, managing our finances and stuff, so I think these are kind of neat. How do I claim the interest on money borrowed to invest? Make sure you're capturing that stuff if it applies. We've done a lot of work with people implementing the Smith maneuver, where they're leveraging against their house and investing in different areas to you know, pay off their debts and grow their portfolio faster, and there's a whole bunch of neat tax planning that goes on behind that. Make sure we're capturing that. Can I claim my accounting fees? If you have a complicated tax situation for your investments, or even if it's not that complicated, but we're going to get some professional advice about you know, how we're running our investments from an accountant, definitely claiming that on the Schedule 4 of your tax return is very cool. Another good one would be like if you're owning gold or silver or diamonds like Dan was talking about earlier, maybe you want to have a safety deposit box to put that stuff in. Definitely write that off on your tax return. So just fees you're going to have every year. Let's you know, let's get some tax savings from them. How do I eliminate the taxes on my rental properties? That is a very cool question. I'm going to be giving like a 45-minute hour discussion on that question alone at Yark's presentation on November the 10th. We'll be talking all about some neat ways to reduce the taxes on your properties, how to properly set up those structures and what have you. But just a really quick little tip for anybody with rental properties in the room. I see a lot of situations where people are buying properties for rent, renting them out, and maybe seeing a little bit of positive cash flow at the end of the day, or close to zero even, and they still have a tax problem because of that income. And there's a really neat provision in the Tax Act that says that we can take the physical value of the property itself and depreciate it to eliminate that revenue. So you have a $200,000 home, and you got a $5,000 you know, rental gain on that particular property. We can decrease the value of the property by $5,000 to eliminate any net income on the property and cut your tax bill. I had a scenario like that I was dealing with just this year. It was with a woman again. She was a little bit older. She was like 77 years old, and just like energy like you wouldn't believe. She comes in there just like fiery like a cracker. She was unbelievable. But we went back and we adjusted all of her tax returns for the past 5 or 6 years to make sure that she was capturing that special deduction for her rental properties. She got a $13,000 refund. Her comment to me on the phone was, yeah, Chris, I got my check in the mail yesterday. I basically fell off my chair. You know, she was very pleased. Very cool. My investments returns are in the form of return of capital. Can I still claim interest on money borrowed? Sometimes people who are running large investment funds, when they're giving you your return on your investment, it's not always in the form of like an interest or a gain. They give it to you in what's called the return of capital, which is basically it's giving you your own money back instead of the return that you got. Even though you may have gotten return, the money that they actually gave you, they tag it as return of your existing funds. And I've seen situations where the government has denied the request to claim interest on those on money borrowed to invest in those funds. And I've seen situations where the government has approved the claiming of interest on those funds. And kind of the solution is to write to the CRA ahead of time or every year and ask them, get a special assessment. Can I do this? And they'll tell you yes or no. And you kind of know ahead of time to make sure that you're safe. Business tax questions. What can I deduct against my business revenues? We could have a whole hour conversation on that. Michelle, my fiance, has a few handouts. If anybody is interested in that question, that has just kind of a list of business expense that they can claim on their business. Michelle, give Yarick the rental property expense list as well. She also has a list of common expenses that we can use on rental properties if anybody's interested in that one. My business is already in a loss. Is there a benefit to further deducting my expenses? And the answer is yes. Whether it be on a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or an incorporated business, putting that business at a loss can give you some huge advantages. One, on your sole proprietorship, you can use those losses to offset any employment gains. For example, if you're working somewhere and making $30,000 a year in income and your business took a $10,000 loss, well, we use that $10,000 to change your income from a $30,000 income to a $20,000 income and get you a good-sized tax refund in the process. The alternate equation is if you don't work and your business still makes a loss, you can take those losses and you can either carry them back 3 years or carry them forward 7 years to offset any business gains for those years. So that would be very cool. Really common question, should I lease or purchase my new car? What percentage of my home should I claim? Do I have to keep a kilometer log? You want me to tackle that one? Okay. Do I have to keep a kilometer log? The technical answer from Canada Revenue Agency, it says you must keep a kilometer log. The tax law says you have to. In actual practice, I would say, like less than 5% of people actually keep a kilometer log. I've seen a couple of solutions to this. Some people, if in the event of an audit, will go back and pull up Google Maps and pull up the kilometers of their common trips to come up with some figures and stuff like that for them. Or really in extreme situation, I guess it's borderline tax fraud, but people will sit down with multiple pens and put them in a book. That's bad advice. The short and good answer is keep a kilometer log. It's a percentage based on, well, it's whatever's reasonable. We can talk about that afterwards maybe. How do I expense medical and dental against my business? That's a really, really neat concept. Rick, am I running out of time?
4 minutes.
Okay, really neat question. How do I expense medical and dental against my business? Some people will try to just claim their medical and dental as a credit on their personal taxes, which gives you a very limited tax savings. Okay, there's a lot of complicated rules. It's got to be more than 3% of your income, and then it's only 15% of the claim, and this and that. But you can actually use it as a deduction on against your business, whether that be with a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or an incorporation. And the actual tax savings, I won't go into the details so much on how the program works, but you can achieve about a 25% tax saving by deducting these expenses. But to do so, you need to have a private health spending plan. And if anybody's interested in that, I'll have a more lengthy conversation with you afterwards. Michelle has brought applications for anybody who wants to set one up. At what point should I incorporate? What are the benefits of incorporating? Should we declare dividends? You're like a show on yourself. What the heck is the shareholders loan account, and how do we use it to reduce and defer taxes? How do declaring bonuses defer my tax bill? These are really cool strategies. When it comes to corporate tax planning, I want to really emphasize that there's a difference between proactive planning and reactive planning. Okay? Proactive planning is what you're doing in advance. How are we withdrawing these funds from our company? How are we allocating them? Are we allocating them to shareholder loan accounts? Can we, declare dividends or bonuses to offset our income in this particular year? This falls into a common tax term, or the 3 Ds: deduct, divide, defer. Okay? About 50% of this tax act is based on strategies to deduct, divide, and defer your taxes. And it's very cool. With your corporate tax planning, it's really the difference between somebody who's filing your taxes off of Kijiji for $400 and having a chartered accountant doing the work for you. It'll save you an arm and a leg in tax. We're almost on the list here, Rick. What strategies can I use to split income with my family? How do I structure my shares? What is a holding company, and how does it help me? When should we add a family trust to our structure? How do we maximize the small business deduction limit? Companies that are approaching that $500,000 mark, there's some really neat things that you can do to capture that multiple times over. Okay, if you structure your company properly, there are some neat opportunities to be making sure that you're always keeping your corporate taxes at that 14% mark and not in the low 40s like you would if you crossed over the small business deduction limit. We are going to raise money for our business. How do we need to structure things to be tax efficient and securities compliant? And what investments are tax efficient in my corporation? Don't get stuck in the trap by holding interest producing bonds in your corporation thinking that it's a good tax plan. You're going to pay an arm and a leg on taxes on the interest that you'll receive on that money. Really quickly, who we are. That's me and my partner Agostino. We run Pinnacle Equities. I'm the head of the accounting department, Pinnacle Accounting. We're about a 7-man team. We're a small firm based in Calgary. And yes, our graphic guy did cut off part of Agostino's cheek. The accounting department specializes in full-cycle bookkeeping, corporate tax planning for personals, corporations, family trusts. We'll set up limited partnerships, run all the share structures, and we put people on a full-cycle program to keep them on track and make sure that their filings are in order. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah!